Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of Before Coffee. It's Tuesday. We're waking up Raj, and we're getting him back on the normal schedule after his holiday.
Hello.
Good morning.
It's 6 o'clock. Yeah, I guess it is. All right. Well, I'm going to use the bathroom.
Okay.
It won't surprise you none. All right. Get as much sleep as I possibly can.
Are we ready for a good Tuesday?
I tell you.
How did you come up with that? Where'd that come from?
Huh?
The
inner depths of my squishy morning brain.
This is your squishy brain.
Yeah, my brain is all squishy, man. It's like, oh, you can ask me anything. I'm bound to say anything. You know, it's like a hypnotic state, you know. Did I really do that? Yeah, you were hypnotized. All right, yeah, I'm ready. Got my 3 stories, man.
Okay. Today on Before Coffee, Ursula von der Leyen says direction of travel is EU membership for Ukraine.
In the USA, helping your dog through the 4th of July.
It looks like Mars. Nicopol locals on life without water after the dam explosion.
In Good Tuesday, the magic of moss. The tiny plant absorbs 6 times more CO2 than other plants.
Leon Gautier, last surviving French D-Day commando, dies at 100.
And more Good Tuesday. Man jumps in during freak storm to rescue 4 people from sinking Florida houseboat on today. It is Tuesday, July 4th, 2023 edition of Before Coffee. In the small
Okay, let's look at our first news story here. Concerning Ukraine and their EU membership, this is from Lisa O'Carroll in Madrid. The EU has said it will be impossible to envision a future for the bloc without Ukraine and Moldova as members, in part to reduce Russian influence in East and Central Europe. While other countries such as Romania and Bulgaria took 11 years to become members of the EU, joining in 2007, the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, hinted the future of the new accession candidates will be swiftly decided. Can you imagine the European Union without Ukraine? Without Moldova? Without the Western Balkans? And those parts of Europe are under the influence of Russia or China? Impossible. So, the direction of travel is clear, she said at the launch of the Spanish presidency of the Council of EU in Madrid. It will mean the rest of the EU must begin the conversations that will flow from inevitable enlargement, including budgets and reform of agricultural policy. Now, we have to start to think about how are we making sure that Europe is home, that those countries are part of the European Union. These are principal decisions that we have to take. We have to discuss how the decision-making process will look like. We have to discuss how the common funding that we will be allocated with, what are common policies that will follow, and she's adding these questions to be addressed as soon as possible. Early reports, later clarified by her spokesperson, had suggested von der Leyen had sought membership for the two within 4 years. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez, who had called a snap election for the end of July, set out his plans for the country's EU presidency. He set out 4 priorities, including continued support for Ukraine and harnessing what von der Leyen described as Spain's global clout to get the Mercosur trade deal with Latin American countries over the line. He also wants to wean the EU off Chinese dependency for critical raw materials and build resilience in supply chains for new medicines. He also committed to accelerate initiatives to move the EU's energy supply to renewable while at the same time introducing laws to eliminate microplastics. Rights for workers, including gig workers, along with social rights and tax evasion by multinationals, were also listed as a target for the next 6 months, as is the vexed issue of completing the draft migration legislation agreed by the majority of the bloc but opposed by Poland. Under the system of rotating 6-month presidencies, each country is able to identify its own priorities in the race to get legislation over the line during its term. Sanchez is overseeing what has been dubbed the Golden Presidency, the last full stewardship by a member state before the European Parliament elections next year. He made no mention of the fate of the nature restoration law, which remains deadlocked after center-right politicians blocked its passage through the key committee stage in European Parliament last week, or the future of the Media Freedom Act, which includes clauses that would allow national security forces to place spyware on journalists' phone. Okay, yeah, we talked about that a couple times earlier in the show. I think a month ago about that Media Freedom Act. It's interesting, passing on the leadership to someone else, and we'll see what happens in the EU from that. On to your next news story.
Oh, so we're ready for my story. Huh?
Yeah.
Well, hopefully we have a story about July 4th and dogs, and hopefully we get some dog puns. I always look forward to more puns about dogs, because they have it really rough, or something like that. Anyway, Terry Tang of AP checks in with a story about dogs. On Friday, before 4th of July, more than a dozen dog owners awaited in triple-digit temperatures in South Phoenix to get into the microchipping event inside the shelter. It didn't hurt that Maricopa was offering a discount, but several were there because they knew they were having a mic trip with their contact information implanted in their pups. It would increase the likelihood of their being returned if the worst happens in Independence Day. Ava's a scaredy cat of any loud noises, said Rory Chang, who was there with the golden retriever. Her immediate reaction was to hide in corners, and after that, she will literally paw at you, wanting you to pet her the whole time. Most of the U.S. may be looking forward Tuesday to a dazzling displays of fireworks or setting off firecrackers or poppers in their neighborhood. Those with the furry four-legged family members, maybe not so much. They're searching for solutions to the 4th of July anxiety that fireworks bring. Their behavior can range from cowering in the corners to run away from home. Trying to figure out what's to soothe the dog can practically feel like an annual tradition in itself. Without fail, Dr. Kelly DeGroof, a veterinarian in Phoenix, gets requests for anxiety medication from some pet owners starting 2 weeks before July 4th. This past week, there have been 2 to 3 requests daily. I think it has to do with certain breeds. Obviously, hunting dogs are a breed for that purpose, and they don't typically have any issues with it. But a lot of other dogs, it seems to trigger a fight or flight response in them, DeGroof said. DeGroof prescribes either a gum gel that helps the noise phobia or anxiety pills. She's expecting numerous requests for meds as late as Monday. The dog owners shouldn't be asking so close to the holiday. A week before is best. That day, when they give you medication, you can do a trial dose beforehand so that you know what to expect and you know what it's going to do or what it's not going to do. If you don't have time to obtain veterinary assistance, you suggest calming supplements or a thunder shirt, a wrap that is supposed to feel like a gentle hug for the dog. Oh, a thunder shirt. Doggy care. Doggy day cares are also trying to offer more resources. The franchise owners of several Phoenix area locations of Dogtopia, a nationwide company, have brought in 2 or 3 different staff over the past couple of years, according to marketing manager David Duran. On Tuesday, they will be extending up pickup hours until 11 p.m. if pet parents want to enjoy festivities a little longer. Even though the playrooms are mostly soundproof, employees will be having dance parties and blasting music to help block out the sound of the fireworks. One fireworks seller has found a way to be part of the solution. Billy Jo Gonzalez is now in her 4th year of selling CBD dog treats at Gonzo's Fire of Mines fireworks in Butte, Montana. She saw the treats made by local baker Heidi Johnson on Facebook and reached out. It helps my business because my business is actually creating the problem, Gonzalez said. It's a win-win situation that she thinks more fireworks vendors should consider. I'd say it's increased our business and it's great for advertising, Gonzalez said. Unfortunately, dogs invariably go missing nationwide every July 4th. That's where shelters come in, picking up more strays than usual in the days following. A city animal shelter in Great Falls, 155 miles north of Butte, recently installed 24/7 microchip scanning device to help people find lost dogs, owners, even when the shelter is closed. Maricopa County's 2 shelters are already currently over capacity with more than 800 dogs, so it will be hard-pressed to receive any more during the holiday. Not as many dogs were brought here on July 4th during the coronavirus pandemic because fireworks shows were fewer, said Kim Powell, spokeswoman for Maricopa County Animal Care and Control. But most local dogs fire productions go back on. But with most local fireworks productions back on, county shelters are expecting the number of dogs arriving to jump by 30 to 60%. This is something that the shelter would dreads all year long. We started talking about planning ahead this back in March. And it goes on and on and on, the history of dogs and fireworks and gunpowder and the discovery of fire and all that good stuff. And on to you as people. Dogs are people too, as I screwed up that saying.
All dogs go to heaven, as they say, and we will hope that none of them go there because of fireworks.
No puns in that whole story. And every dog. Go ahead.
All right. Let's look at news for Ukraine. This is from Luke Harding in Nikopol, where the water after the dam explosion has left the entire area looking like Mars. Anna Supernova stood in front of what was once a vast artificial sea. Her home at number 7 Hetman Street looks on to Kakhovka Reservoir in the southern Ukraine, or at least it did. The water has recently vanished. Most of it disappeared in the space of 3 surreal days last month after Russian troops blew up Kakhovka hydroelectric dam farther downstream. Ever since, Supernova and other residents in the frontline town of Nikopol have been without water. At the bottom of her garden is an unearthly, desolate, muddy plain. It stretches as far as Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant station, visible in the near haze. The civilian facility, occupied by Moscow since the beginning of the invasion, is 5 kilometers away. The Russians have transformed the nuclear power plant into a full-blown military base, according to Ukrainian intelligence, that has mined its 6 reactors and a cooling pond. Armored vehicles shelter in its hall. It's an ominous development. Staff who have signed contracts with Rosatom, the Kremlin's nuclear agency, have been told to leave. 3 senior figures have gone to Crimea, with routine patrols scaled back. President Vladimir Zelensky has warned that Vladimir Putin is plotting a terrorist attack and has urged the international community to act. We have been saying for a long time that there is a serious threat, because Russia is technically ready to provoke a local explosion at the plant, which would lead to the release of dangerous substances into the air. We communicate this very clearly, he said on Saturday. It's kind of like a James Bond plot. Evil guy takes over a plant, starts farming the nuclear material to set up a bomb. That's what it sounds like to me anyways, like a plot for a James Bond film. We have to get a spy in there to infiltrate and stop the calamity.
And a girl in a sexy dress.
Yeah. The town of Nikopol, current population is 50,000, and other nearby cities are taking the threat seriously. Last week, for the first time, they carried out radiation drills, a rehearsal for what locals should do in case of a repeat of the 1986 Chernobyl disaster, when contamination blew from Ukraine to Belarus and across Europe to Scandinavia. It was the world's worst ever civil nuclear incident. The Zaporizhzhia plant is on my doorstep. You can see it, Supernova said. If there's a nuclear leak, we will fetch a dog, go inside and close the windows and doors. Unfortunately, we don't have a car. We won't get far on foot. She, her husband, Siri, and 15-year-old daughter, Angela, would wait for rescue. I'm not sure who exactly would come, she admitted. Speaking on Monday, Nikopol Military District Chief Yevhen Yevtushenko said that the situation was under control. Radiation levels were normal. There was no sign that the Russians were leaving the plant in big numbers, he said. The authorities are not planning on forced evacuation, for now. Since Russia's all-out attack in February 2022, about half the town's population had moved to safer areas, he said. So, there's more in this article, but it's mostly just asking, what do you think? Are you scared? What are you gonna do? And most of them are just like, yeah, this isn't like great, but how are we supposed to leave? I'm really saddened about the reservoir getting emptied and the dam being destroyed.
More refugees, more destruction, more need for somebody to come in and help. That's what the rest of us need to do. Stop being selfish.
Your story.
All right, let's go to Good Tuesday. And this is from the goodnewsnetwork.org. Our article by Andy Corbally. The magic of moss, the tiny plant that absorbs 6 times more CO2 than other plants. Spongy, like my brain, speaking of spongy, uniquely green and allegedly good with directions, Earth's ubiquitous mosses are more important to ecosystems than they appear. Found in at least 12,000 species living everywhere from snow-capped mountains to red-hot deserts, moss is the oldest living relative of all plants, but despite its age, it seems to hold the key to many of our modern challenges. Well, I think that's actually intuitive, because if it's lived that long, it's withstood a lot of challenges. In a study published in Nature this May, mossy soils were found to contain 6 times more carbon than soils, even healthy and rich ones, where mosses were not present. We were gobsmacked, and the mosses were doing all these amazing things, David Eldridge, an ecologist at the University of South Wales, told Science Report. I should have done that in a Welsh accent, huh? Or where's South Wales? That's in Australia. Okay. Should have done it with an Australian accent. Eldridge was part of the large survey as a pop-up ad. Okay, go away. All right. Survey that sampled mosses from over 100 different sites worldwide in order to get an understanding of the impact of these little green balls and mats. For starters, they estimated that moss covered an area of Earth about as big as China or Canada. Their little sprigs hold hundreds of tiny leaves, some just 1 cell thick, but they're relatively simple organisms. Moss survive by absorbing water from the air. In dry climates, the edges crumble and the moss appears to shrivel up and die. We've taken mosses out of a packet after 100 years, squirted them with water, and watched them come to life. Their cells do not disintegrate like ordinary plants do. What's more, the team found that mosses are better than plants at storing nutrients like carbon, and they estimated that 6.43 billion metric tons of carbon are stored in mossy soils. They seem to keep a lid on plant pathogens in soil samples when mosses were present. The pathogen load was much more or less than the soils or mosses were absent. Their powers of resilience are indeed remarkable. In 1980, Mount St. Helens erupted in the state of Washington. The eruption causes many plants in the area to die off. Mosses were some of the first plants to pop back up, preceded only by cyanobacteria like algae. Moss can be tricky to grow and work with, but if one can harness its power, moss makes a great lawn. Its thick mat of roots keeps the soil intact and moist underneath, improving the health of the earth and making for supreme weed control. It is a great example of how the web of life works and why respect for all living things is merited. Because even small, simple, and primitive life has its role in helping an ecosystem stay healthy. And there you go. Moss. Not just the spongy stuff on my brain, a thing that will help our ecosystem. Your story.
The power of moss. Amazing. Okay. My next story is about... Sorry?
Moss Appreciation Day.
Moss Appreciation Day.
They don't have it, let's have it. Let's invent some days. By golly. Who invents these? Go ahead.
Historical loss. Leon Gautier, last surviving member of the French commando unit that waded ashore on D-Day alongside Allied troops to begin the liberation of France, died on Monday. He was 100 years old. Gautier was one of the 177 French Green Berets who stormed the Normandy beaches defended by Hitler's forces in 1944. The French President Emmanuel Macron described Gautier and his comrades as heroes of the liberation. "We will not forget him," Macron wrote on Twitter. Last month, Gautier presented a student Marine commando with his Green Beret at a passing out parade at Colleville, Montgomery, near the spot where he had landed on the Sword Beach in a hail of enemy fire at the age of 21. In a poignant moment during the ceremony, the young Marine knelt on one knee to allow Gautier to straighten his beret. Gautier was born on the 27th of October 1922 in Brittany village of Faucheres and grew up amid bitter memories of the First World War. He was on board one of the last French warships to sail for Britain to join the Free French forces of General Charles de Gaulle as the Germans swept across the northern half of France in 1940. On D-Day, 6th June 1944, Gautier and his comrades in the Kiefer Commando Unit were among the first waves of Allied troops to storm the heavily defended beaches of Nazi-occupied northern France, beginning the liberation of Western Europe. In the huge invasion force made up largely of American, British, and Canadian soldiers, French Captain Philippe Kiefer's commandos ensured France had feats to be proud of, too, after the dishonor of its Nazi occupation. For us, it was special. We were happy to come home. We were at the head of the landing. The British let us go a few meters in front. You move, the French. After you. Gautier recalled, for us it was the liberation of France, the return into the family. The commandos came ashore carrying 4 days' worth of rations and ammunition, 300 kilograms or nearly 70 pounds in all. They sprinted up the beach and with their heavy sacks and spent 78 days straight on the front lines, never dwindling numbers. Of the 177 who waded ashore on the morning of the 6th of June, just 24 escaped death or injury, Gautier among them. Their initial objective was a heavily fortified bunker. Although the strong point was just a few kilometers away, it took them 4 hours of fighting to get there and take it. On the beach, they cut through barbed wire under a hail of bullets. We were being shot at. We shot at them too, Gautier remembered. When we arrived near the walls of the bunkers, we threw grenades in, through the slits. He later injured his left ankle jumping off a train and was forced to sit out much of the rest of the war. His ankle remained painfully swollen for the rest of his long life. Gautier devoted much of his life after the war making sure lessons from war were not forgotten by giving interviews, taking part in commemorations, and helping put together the museum in Ouistreham that commemorates the French commandos who helped liberate Normandy. Decades later, he still grappled with the violence of war. War is misery. Not all that long ago, and perhaps you find this silly, but I would think perhaps I killed a young lad, perhaps I orphaned children, perhaps I widowed a woman or made her mother cry, he said. I didn't want that. I'm not a bad man. You kill a man who's done nothing to you. That's war, and you do it for your country. So there you go, a nice little patriotic French
Hail to the
article
hero.
there. It's just reported by everyone. This is not from a particular source. It just says from agencies. So I think it's just a mangled up story put together here on The Guardian. And really interesting and really sad because I think for a while most countries don't have any World War II veterans anymore. So that's the last one, at least from D-Day. I'm sure they might still have people alive from World War II, but I think that's the last D-Day person.
Quick calculation, anybody that was 21 in 1944 when D-Day happened is now 100 years old. So
Yeah,
anybody
he
that
was.
So if they're still alive, hey, hats off to you to survive that. I always thought about how I would survive something like that, an invasion like that. I would leave my gun, I would leave my rifle, I would leave my rations, I would leave everything on the landing craft and haul ass to the beach. And when I got there, I used some dead guy's gun, some dead guy's rations. You know, if I made it that far, shit,
Yeah.
let's go. You're not killing anybody. You're not killing anybody from that landing crafts. You're like, oh, I'm gonna shoot that guy. No, fuck no. Get on the beach. Get cover.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was my thoughts. It's like haul ass. Forget about. You see people drowning in those movies, drowning because they're overloaded with stuff.
Yeah.
With all that stuff, you know, you're probably not gonna make it.
You can get the stuff when you win. Go get it. Go back and go get it.
I wouldn't even worry about ammunition, nothing. Anyway, I'd be like hauling ass to the beach. I'll get a new gun up there somewhere, you know. Anyway, the odds of survival increase if you're moving. After of Florida, this is Good News Day. Man jumps in during freak storm and rescues Florida. This is Florida, short story. After golf, this is also for the goodnewsnetwork.org, Andy Lee. After golf conditions off the Florida Panhandle changed rapidly, one resident attempted to rescue 3 people in a capsized houseboat. Another boat saw what was happening and came to help and even rescue the rescuers, demonstrating the diffusion of heroism among the folks of the Florida Gulf community. And this is, it started last Friday when Travis Brady and his friends left Panama City Marina on the opening day of red snapper season, and with storm clouds coming fast behind them. Loath to miss the chance for a big catch, they nevertheless decided to call it a day early when the water became smattered with 5 to 6 foot waves. On the way back to the marina, they saw a houseboat, a floating general store that had served watermen in a nearby sandbar, had broken off from its moorings. As Brady and his friends approached, they saw another boat had already arrived, and its owner was attempting to rescue the 3 people trapped in the houseboat. The rescuer, later identified as Boyd Jordan, jumped in the water, smashed one window, and helped all 3 people out of the houseboat after the houseboat capsized. He's the true hero of the story, Brady told WJHJ without hesitation. He was just in the water helping those people. That's when Brady and his friends arrived, dodging debris and waves to throw a life jacket to Jordan with a line attached to it. The houseboat's occupants were already wearing life jackets. Hauling Jordan aboard their already overcrowded fishing boat, they then guided the stranded individuals to the sandbar where they were able to walk ashore. Brady then took Jordan in his own boat before it crashed into the seawall. No one was injured. Not one injury was sustained, and there were no damages to either boat. All in all, it was a miraculous escape. All glory be to God, man. He put us in the right place, the right time. I've never been so super religious, but Friday was just an eye-opening moment for me. I feel like divine intervention puts you in the right place at the right time. And there's a video here that goes through the story from NBC News that actually shows the rescue. But that was a short and sweet story. Too bad it took me 42 minutes to find it. Your story.
Okay. In culture news, Barbie movie banned in Vietnam over South China Sea map. The new Barbie movie that will soon premiere worldwide will not be shown in cinemas in Vietnam. The Hollywood film has been banned because it shows a world map with the so-called 9-dash line, the Chinese demarcation of the disputed area in the South China Sea. The map in the film is against the sore leg of Vietnam, which also claims part of that area. Presumably, the filmmakers incorporated the map into the film for commercial reasons, with a view to access the Chinese market. The conflict over the South China Sea has been going on for decades. Beijing claims virtually all of South China Sea, including the islands. Shortly after the World War II, the country drew the 9-dash line, and everything within the line is considered its own territory. Other countries in the region and the United Nations disagree with this claim. The Permanent Court of Abolition in The Hague also says that China has no right to the area. The Vietnamese government believes that the makers of the film implicitly indicate that the card that they support China's claim and has therefore banned the film. The South China Sea is incredibly important in many ways. There were a lot of raw materials, a lot of fish, and 40% of all the world trade passes through it. It is very important for Vietnam to maintain control over the parts it claims to have the right to. But the Vietnamese also believe that the rest of the world should understand that the Chinese claims are unjustified. Vietnam is afraid that if Hollywood films show maps that state that the South China Sea belongs to China, the world will also think so. You would think it's quite strange that they put dashes in such a film at all, because you can also leave them out and say nothing about which country claims what. But the Chinese film industry only allows a limited number of Western films, so Hollywood films try to flatter the Chinese government to enter the Chinese market that way. Because then you suddenly get 1 billion new customers to watch your film, and that's making a lot of money. The film will be shown in Chinese cinemas, according to the site The China Project. Social media has welcomed the presence of the 9-dash line in the film. Some social media users say the conflict is reason enough to definitely watch the film now. It's more common for films to be banned in Vietnam for this reason. In recent years, this happened with the films Everest, The Young Yeti, international title Abominable, and Uncharted. Makers of the series Put Your Head on My Shoulder and Madam Secretary were ordered to remove scenes in which the controversial card can be seen. The film Barbie with Margot Robbie as Barbie and Ryan Gosling as Ken can be seen in cinemas on July 19th. In the film, Barbie and Ken are banished from the perfect fantasy world they live in and set on a journey to discover the real world. This was an article on NOS, a Dutch news site. On to this day in history.
We finally get Barbie and Ken brought to life, huh?
Yeah.
This day in history, in 1802, the United States Military Academy opened in West Point, New York. And 1804, American writer Nathaniel Hawthorne, whose greatest works, including The Scarlet Letter, was born in Salem, Massachusetts. So happy birthday to Nathaniel Hawthorne. In 1826, two major figures, American Revolution, who became U.S. presidents, Thomas Jefferson and John Adams, died 50 years to the day of the adoption of the Declaration of Independence. So, hello there. 1845, essayist and philosopher Henry David Thoreau moved to his retreat in Walden Pond, where he eventually wrote a series of reflective essays titled Walden, or Life in the Woods. And American author Walt Whitman in 1855 first published Leaves of Grass, a landmark in the history of American literature. Undergoing numerous revisions, the poetry collection became known for its unconventional language and celebration of the human body and sexual passion. In 1865 also, Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland was published, 10 years to the day after Leaves of Grass. Interesting. Though the first print was soon recalled because of quality issues, a new first edition was released in November. In 1884, the Statue of Liberty was presented to the United States by the French in Paris. In 1910, what was billed as a fight of the century, African-American boxer Jack Johnson defeated James Jackson Jeffries, who was considered the Great White Hope. His victory led to nationwide celebrations by African Americans, who were occasionally met by violence from whites, resulting in more than 20 deaths across the country. People took this shit seriously.
Yeah.
1930, on the Appreciation Day to honor his American baseball player Lou Gehrig, who had been forced to retire months earlier to ALS, he gave a memorable speech where he considered himself the luckiest man on the face of the earth. 1946, the Republic of the Philippines was proclaimed an independent country with Manuel Rojas as its first president. So, Philippine Independence Day is the same day as U.S. Independence Day. 1976, British punk rock band The Clash gave their first performance opening for the Sex Pistols in the pub in Sheffield, England. So, that is an important day. The only band that matters. 2012, scientists at the Large Hadron Collider in CRN announced that they had detected an interesting signal that was likely a form of Higgs boson. Or they were probably just bragging about the size of their Higgs boson. You know how these scientists are. In 1776, today, July 4th, the Declaration of Independence approved by the Second Continental Congress. The Declaration of Independence adopted on this day, 1776, by the Second Continental Congress, because the first one, they drank too much wine. Called for the American colonies to secede from Great Britain, a proclamation now commemorated by U.S. national holiday. Just kidding, it was probably not wine, it was probably beer. And just because, in a featured biography, Vivekananda, Hindu leader, was born on January 12, 1863, died on this day in 1902 at the age of 39 in Kolkata, India. And birthdays today, Cyrus Mistry, an Indian businessman, was born in 1968. 1964, Eva Marie Saint, American actress, was born. 1902, Meyer Lansky, American gangster, was born. On the cake, checking in gangsters' birthdays, give them something nice. 1872, Calvin Coolidge, President of the United States, was born in 1807. And in 1807, Giuseppe Garibaldi, Italian revolutionary, was born. So he would be, 216 today. So happy birthday to 216th birthday to that fella. Next, what day is it? Very short but sweet list today because it's 4th of July. Nobody wanted to snare it. It's Alice in Wonderland Day, as we know. This is the day it was published. It's Independence Day in the United States and the Philippines. And it's National Caesar Salad Day and National Barbecued Spare Ribs Day. So there's your food for today, July 4th. You can only have those two things, spare ribs and Caesar salad. Not any other kind.
That's the worst meal I've ever heard in my life. There has to be more than that. What about some corn, man? If you want to celebrate American independence, eat some American food, like corn and tomatoes and potatoes. Those are all American plants, by the way. Don't let Europe tell you any differently. This has been Allison here from the Netherlands. Excited to see the Barbie movie. I guess I'll watch it. People are really hyping it. I never cared about Barbie. I think I had Bratz dolls when I was young, but I never really had Barbie dolls. I think Robin had the Barbie dolls. I didn't. So, anyways, we'll see you tomorrow on Wednesday for more news from Before Coffee.
And this is Roger on the Independence Day, and gonna put my dogs in a thunder vest and have some salad that commemorates an ancient Roman dictator and ruler. I don't think he was a dictator.
He kind of was.
Yeah, he was stabbed in the back. And barbecue spare ribs on July 4th, 2023 edition of the Comprehensive News of Planet Earth Before Coffee. Be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and notify buttons, and follow our other channels, Toxic Alley, History of Gravy, and Scratchy Old Records.